Hi guys, and welcome back to Faith and Conviction, and I'm your host Ray Harris, and we're continuing our discussion about Friedrich Nietzsche and his parable called the Madman. Last time we had begun or continued looking at some of the motifs in this parable, and this time I want to look a little further down when he talks about how God is dead. So I really want to pick up with that phrase because it's a three-word sentence that he has in this parable. And a lot of the literary world, a lot of philosophers have taken a hold of this three-word sentence and have used it to proclaim many things. And I really don't believe that they're using it in a way proper with the way Nietzsche has written this. But let's start right there. God is dead. God remains dead. And we have killed him. Now, what comes next is a very, very important question. And I want you to hear what Nietzsche asks. How shall we, the murderers of all murderers, comfort ourselves? Okay, now that's a very interesting question because he's posing a philosophical question. He says, if we as humanity are able to kill God, how are we going to actually atone for this murder? Okay, now this is actually very important because what he describes next are atonements that God talks about in his word. Atonements that allow people to come before God to purify themselves of sin, transgression, unrighteousness, missing the ability to be a moral creature like God. And if we come down into the New Testament and you're a believer that Jesus, Yeshua, is the Messiah and the promised one, we believe that he is the fulfillment of all these sacrifices and the final atonement. But what's important is that Nietzsche brings up a very important concept. He says, what are we going to do to comfort ourselves? And he asks major questions. What was holiest and most powerful of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives? So he's saying that we were able to do this. He goes, it was the best thing that the world ever had. Yet we tried to kill him, and we succeeded, according to this parable. Who will wipe the blood off of us? Now see, that's very important because there are things in here that will allow us to atone, to make things right. And Nietzsche is saying if we have killed God and we don't have any access to make atonement for this, what are we going to do? He goes, what water is there for us to clean ourselves? It's very interesting. He uses the idea of water because baptism cleans. The mikvahs cleaned. There's ritualistic cleansings that have been found and are written in God's word. And Nietzsche is asking, what are we going to do to cleanse ourselves? What festivals of atonement? God has allowed these things, and the Jews celebrate the Day of Atonement, going before God and trying to make things right. And these things come down, and if you're a Christian and you're following the disciple, or not the disciple, but the Messiah, we find ways of making atonement. And Nietzsche is going, what are we going to do? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? So he's now at a perplexed point that he is saying that if we have killed him and nobody believes, that what are we going to have to do to make things right? He says a little bit later, must we not become gods simply to seem worthy of having killed the God? So he's wrestling with tremendous issues. We as people who believe in Jehovah should not really wrestle with what he's saying. But I do think that Nietzsche is bringing up a very powerful idea, which is going to be found down later in this parable. And we're going to try and wrap up describing his parable in this next segment by looking at what he calls the sepulchers. And I invite you to come back for that segment. I invite you to hear what we're going to say here at Faith and Conviction. And I hope this has been a way to give us strength in the face of such challenging ideas that we can have faith and we can have conviction. Thank you.